Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! As the morning light bathed the room in a soft, golden hue, Damien's eyelids fluttered open, welcoming the day. He shifted in bed, his well-built physique awakening from its restful state. With a gentle rustle, he ran his fingers through his coppery locks, the morning routine becoming a symphony of quiet movements. Rising from the comfort of his haven, he gracefully unfolded his long limbs. The sound of his sister's voice, vibrant and unmistakable, floated up the staircase. "Damien, you've got to come check this out!" With a faint smile, he slipped into a well-worn pair of jeans and a simple tee, his attire a reassuring constant. Taking the steps downstairs, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee tingled his senses, guiding him to the source. In the heart of the kitchen, Olivia stood, her posture mirroring her playful spirit. "Oh yeah? What's that?" Olivia grinned, holding up a hanger. On it hung a pink floral sundress, its fabric light and airy. "Wear this. For a whole day." His jaw dropped. "You're kidding, right?" "Nope. Unless you're too chicken?" Damien's competitive streak flared. "Fine. Give it here." He snatched the dress and stomped back upstairs, grumbling under his breath. In his room, he held up the garment, studying its delicate pattern. With a deep breath, he stripped off his clothes and slipped the dress over his head. The fabric settled against his skin, surprisingly soft and light. He turned to the mirror, expecting to feel ridiculous. Instead, a strange sensation washed over him. The dress hugged his waist, flaring out at the hips in a way that felt right. Shaking his head, Damien forced himself to focus. It was just a dare. Nothing more. He made his way back downstairs, bracing for Olivia's laughter. Her eyes widened as he entered the kitchen. "Wow, Damien. You actually look good." He felt his cheeks flush. "Whatever. Let's just get this over with." As the day progressed, Damien found himself forgetting about the dress. It moved with him, allowing a freedom his usual clothes didn't. When a breeze lifted the hem, he felt a thrill run through him. That evening, as he changed back into his regular clothes, Damien couldn't shake the memory of how the dress had felt. He pushed the thoughts aside, convincing himself it was nothing. But in the days that followed, he found himself drawn to the women's section while shopping. His fingers would brush against silky blouses and flowing skirts, a longing building in his chest. One afternoon, while Olivia was out, Damien found himself back in her room. He opened her closet, his heart racing as he reached for a blue sundress. Before he could talk himself out of it, he slipped it on. The fabric settled around him, and he exhaled slowly. It felt like coming home. He twirled, watching the skirt flare out around his legs. In that moment, something clicked into place. Over the next few weeks, Damien began secretly buying his own dresses. He'd wait until the house was empty, then transform into someone new. He chose the name Leia, reveling in the freedom it brought. As Leia, he experimented with makeup, learning to accentuate his features. He practiced walking in heels, marveling at how they changed his posture and gait. Each time he dressed up, it felt more and more like his true self emerging. One day, as he stood before the mirror in a flowing green dress, auburn hair cascading over his shoulders, Damien made a decision. He couldn't keep living a double life. He sat Olivia down, his hands shaking as he spoke. "I need to tell you something." Concern filled her eyes. "What is it?" Taking a deep breath, he said, "Remember that dare with the dress? Well, it changed everything. I've realized that I'm transgender. I'm a woman." Silence fell between them. Then, to his surprise, Olivia smiled. "I kind of suspected. You've seemed so much happier lately. Is there a name you'd like me to use?" Tears welled up in his eyes. "Leia. I'd like to be called Leia." Olivia hugged her tightly. "Well, Leia, I think it's time we go shopping. You're going to need a whole new wardrobe." In the following months, Leia embraced her true identity fully. She began hormone therapy, watching as her body slowly changed to match her inner self. Her closet filled with dresses, skirts, and blouses in various styles and colors. One spring morning, Leia stood before her mirror, smoothing down the front of a lavender sundress. Her auburn hair, now longer, framed her face softly. She slipped on a pair of white sandals and headed out, ready to face the world as her authentic self. As she walked down the street, the dress swishing around her legs, Leia felt a sense of peace she'd never known before. Passers-by smiled at her, and she returned their greetings with a confidence that grew with each step. She met Olivia for lunch at a small cafe, sliding into the seat across from her sister with grace. "You look beautiful," Olivia said, beaming. Leia smiled, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. "Thank you. I feel beautiful." As they chatted over salads and iced tea, Leia marveled at how far she'd come. That single dare had set her on a path to self-discovery and acceptance. She was grateful for Olivia's unwavering support throughout her transition. After lunch, the sisters decided to do some shopping. They entered a boutique, and Leia's eyes lit up at the array of dresses on display. She ran her fingers over the fabrics, relishing the textures. "Ooh, try this one," Olivia said, holding up a navy blue wrap dress. Leia took it into the dressing room, slipping it on with practiced ease. The dress hugged her curves in all the right places, making her feel elegant and feminine. She stepped out to show Olivia. "Wow, sis! You're stunning!" Olivia gushed. Leia twirled, watching her reflection in the mirror. "I love it! I think this one's coming home with me." As they continued shopping, Leia found herself drawn to a pair of red heels. She tried them on, marveling at how they elongated her legs and improved her posture. Walking in them felt natural now, a far cry from her first tentative steps in Olivia's borrowed shoes. "Those are perfect," Olivia said. "They'll go great with that black dress you bought last week." Leia nodded, already envisioning outfits she could create. Her wardrobe had become a form of self-expression, each piece carefully chosen to reflect her personality and style. As they left the store, bags in hand, Leia felt a surge of gratitude. "Thank you, Olivia, for everything. I don't know if I'd have had the courage to be myself without your support." Olivia squeezed her hand. "You've always been you, Leia. I'm just glad I get to see you happy and comfortable in your own skin." They walked arm in arm down the street, the sun warming their faces. Leia's dress fluttered in the breeze, and she reveled in the sensation. Each day brought new experiences and challenges, but she faced them all with a confidence born from living authentically. That evening, Leia stood on her balcony, watching the sunset. She wore a soft pink nightgown, its silky fabric a constant reminder of how far she'd come. Her auburn hair, now long enough to braid, hung over one shoulder. As the sky turned shades of orange and purple, Leia reflected on her journey. From that first day in Olivia's sundress to now, every step had led her closer to her true self. She thought about the challenges she'd faced, the awkward conversations, the stares from strangers, the process of legally changing her name and gender marker. But with each obstacle overcome, her resolve had only grown stronger. She'd found a community of supportive friends, both within the transgender community and beyond. Her family, after some initial adjustment, had rallied around her with love and acceptance. Leia ran her hands over the railing, feeling the smooth wood beneath her fingertips. She thought about how different her life was now compared to a year ago. Back then, she'd been living as Damien, uncomfortable in her own skin, always feeling like something was missing. Now, as Leia, she felt whole. Her outer appearance finally matched the woman she'd always been inside. She no longer had to hide or pretend. Every morning, she woke up excited to choose an outfit that expressed her true self. As the last rays of sunlight disappeared below the horizon, Leia made her way back inside. Her bedroom, once a sparse, masculine space, now reflected her feminine tastes. Soft curtains framed the windows, and a vanity held an array of makeup and perfumes. She sat at the vanity, picking up a brush and running it through her auburn locks. The repetitive motion soothed her, and she found herself humming softly. In the mirror, she saw a woman who was finally at peace with herself. A notification chimed on her phone, and Leia picked it up to see a message from a dating app she'd recently joined. It was from a woman named Claire, asking if she'd like to meet for coffee sometime. Leia smiled, her heart fluttering with excitement and a touch of nervousness. Dating as a transgender woman came with its own set of challenges, but Leia was determined to approach it with the same courage and authenticity she'd brought to every other aspect of her transition. She typed out a response, suggesting a time and place for their coffee date. As she set her phone down, Leia caught sight of a photo on her dresser. It was from the day she'd come out to her coworkers. She stood in the office, wearing a teal sheath dress, surrounded by her colleagues. Their smiles of support had meant the world to her. Leia picked up the frame, running her finger over the glass. That day had been a turning point. No more hiding, no more pretending to be someone she wasn't. She'd walked into that office as her true self, head held high, ready to face whatever came her way. To her relief and joy, her coworkers had been overwhelmingly supportive. There had been a few awkward moments and slip-ups with pronouns, but overall, the transition at work had gone smoother than she'd dared to hope. Now, months later, being Leia at the office felt as natural as breathing. Setting the photo back down, Leia moved to her closet. She opened the doors, revealing rows of dresses, blouses, and skirts in a rainbow of colors. Her fingers trailed over the fabrics, each one holding a memory. The yellow sundress she'd worn to her first support group meeting, the red cocktail dress from her company's holiday party, the comfy green sweater dress that had become her go-to for lazy weekends. At the back of the closet, pushed to one side, hung a few remnants of her old wardrobe. A couple of button-down shirts, a pair of slacks. She kept them as a reminder of how far she'd come, but she couldn't imagine ever wanting to wear them again. Leia selected a nightgown for the next morning, a soft, flowing piece in pale blue. She laid it out carefully, already looking forward to slipping it on when she woke up. These little rituals, choosing clothes that made her feel beautiful and feminine, never failed to bring her joy. As she prepared for bed, Leia thought about her upcoming coffee date with Claire. She wondered what she should wear, wanting to make a good first impression. Maybe the navy wrap dress she'd bought with Olivia? Or perhaps something more casual, like a floral skirt and blouse combo. She fell asleep with visions of outfits dancing in her head, a smile on her lips. In her dreams, she saw herself walking confidently through life, her dresses flowing around her, auburn hair shining in the sun. It was a vision of the future she was actively creating for herself, one day at a time. The next morning, Leia woke to sunlight streaming through her curtains. She stretched languidly, the soft fabric of her nightgown caressing her skin. As she rose and slipped on the pale blue gown she'd laid out the night before, she felt a sense of excitement for the day ahead. She made her way to the kitchen, the hem of her nightgown swishing around her ankles. As she prepared her morning coffee, Leia hummed softly to herself. The simple act of moving around her home, comfortable and at ease in her feminine attire, still brought her moments of quiet joy. After breakfast, Leia returned to her bedroom to get ready for the day. She stood before her closet, contemplating her choices. Finally, she selected a knee-length A-line skirt in a deep forest green and paired it with a cream-colored blouse. The outfit was professional enough for work, but could easily transition to her coffee date with Claire later. As she dressed, Leia marveled at how natural it all felt now. Adjusting her bra, smoothing down her skirt, these actions that had once felt foreign were now second nature. She remembered the early days of her transition, when every movement in feminine clothing had felt self-conscious and awkward. Now, it was as if she'd been dressing this way her entire life. Leia sat at her vanity, carefully applying her makeup. She'd become quite skilled at enhancing her features, highlighting her cheekbones and making her eyes pop. As she swiped on a coat of mascara, she thought about how much her relationship with makeup had evolved. What had started as a way to feel more feminine had become a form of artistic expression. She finished her look with a swipe of pale pink lipstick and a spritz of floral perfume. Standing back, she assessed her reflection. The woman who looked back at her exuded confidence and grace. It was still sometimes surreal to see herself this way, but it felt undeniably right. Slipping on a pair of modest heels, Leia grabbed her purse and headed out the door. As she walked to her car, she felt the familiar sense of freedom that came with being her true self. The skirt swished around her legs, and she reveled in the feeling of the breeze on her skin. At work, Leia greeted her colleagues with a warm smile. She'd long since stopped noticing the few lingering stares or double takes. Most of her coworkers had adjusted quickly to her transition, and those who hadn't, well, their opinions mattered less and less to her with each passing day. She settled into her desk, smoothing her skirt as she sat. Throughout the morning, Leia found herself occasionally distracted by thoughts of her upcoming date. It had been a while since she'd put herself out there romantically, and she couldn't help feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. As lunchtime approached, Leia touched up her lipstick and gathered her things. She'd arranged to meet Claire at a nearby cafe during her break. Her heart fluttered as she walked the few blocks, her heels clicking rhythmically on the sidewalk. She spotted Claire waiting outside the cafe, a tall woman with a friendly smile. As Leia approached, she saw Claire's eyes widen appreciatively. "Leia?" Claire asked, extending her hand. Leia nodded, shaking Claire's hand. "It's nice to meet you, Claire." They entered the cafe together, finding a cozy table by the window. As they settled in and ordered their drinks, Leia felt her nerves begin to settle. Claire was easy to talk to, and they soon found themselves laughing over shared stories. "I have to say," Claire said, her eyes twinkling, "that color looks beautiful on you. It really brings out the warmth in your auburn hair." Leia felt a blush creep up her cheeks. "Thank you," she replied, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I've always loved green. It makes me feel alive, somehow." As their conversation flowed, touching on their jobs, hobbies, and aspirations, Leia felt a growing connection with Claire. Here was someone who saw her for who she truly was, not as a label or a category, but as a woman. Full stop. When it was time for Leia to return to work, they both seemed reluctant for the date to end. "I'd love to see you again," Claire said as they stood to leave. "Maybe dinner next time?" Leia nodded, a warm smile spreading across her face. "I'd like that very much." They parted ways with a brief hug, and Leia walked back to her office with a spring in her step. The date had gone better than she'd dared to hope, and for the first time in a long while, she felt the stirrings of romantic possibility. Back at her desk, Leia found it hard to concentrate on her work. Her mind kept drifting back to Claire's smile, the way her eyes had lit up when they discovered a shared love of classic literature. It felt good to be appreciated not just for her appearance, but for her mind and personality as well. As the workday drew to a close, Leia gathered her things and headed home. The evening air was warm, and she decided to take a detour through a nearby park. As she walked along the tree-lined path, her skirt swaying with each step, Leia felt a profound sense of contentment wash over her. She thought about how far she'd come since that first day in Olivia's sundress. Each step of her journey, from secret dressing sessions to coming out, from her first day presenting as female in public to this afternoon's wonderful date, had brought her closer to living as her authentic self. Leia found a bench and sat down, taking a moment to soak in the beauty of the park around her. A light breeze rustled the leaves, carrying the scent of blooming flowers. She closed her eyes, feeling the last warm rays of the setting sun on her face. In that moment, surrounded by the quiet beauty of nature, Leia felt truly at peace. She was Leia, not just in name or appearance, but in her very essence. The journey hadn't always been easy, and she knew there would be more challenges ahead. But sitting there, in a park she'd visited countless times before, but never fully appreciated until now, Leia knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the grass, Leia stood and smoothed down her skirt. She began the walk home, her heels clicking softly on the path. With each step, she felt the rightness of her body, the comfort of her clothing, the authenticity of herself. Leia's thoughts drifted to the future, to more dates with Claire, perhaps, to advancing in her career, to the endless possibilities that lay before her. For the first time in her life, she felt truly excited about what was to come. No longer constrained by societal expectations or her own fears, she was free to explore, to grow, to become the woman she'd always known she could be. As she reached her apartment building, Leia paused for a moment, looking up at the stars just beginning to appear in the darkening sky. She sent a silent thank you to the universe for the strength she'd found within herself, for the support of her loved ones, for the chance to live authentically. Then, with a soft smile playing on her lips, Leia entered her building. She was looking forward to a quiet evening at home, perhaps curled up with a good book, wrapped in the soft embrace of a favorite nightgown. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new challenges, new opportunities to be unapologetically herself. And Leia was ready for all of it, one beautiful step at a time.
Thanks for watching, my girlies. Be sure to check out Patreon for more.